Hi, second grade. Today, you're joining me at a King County Forest Preserve area known as the Japanese Gardens. It's in Geneva, Illinois. This was designed by an architect in 1910 by a Japanese architect named Taro Atsuka. An architect is someone who designs buildings and sometimes supervises the construction. Now, some of those buildings could be a house, could be an apartment, could be an office building, and even can be a skyscraper. So architects also design some landscape features, or that means an outdoor area like the one behind me. The Japanese gardens were designed by a landscape architect who created all these different features, including the pond that you see behind me. It's a good combinations of solids on land and solid structures that you see in the background and liquids. Architects do a lot of designing, and designing is part of the engineering design process, and it involves a lot of asking what a problem is, imagining ideas, and planning out a solution. Now, it doesn't always mean that they get to build it, but like I said before, sometimes they get to supervise the building. So it's actually a really big part of engineering and STEAM, which we've talked about. The science piece of it has to deal with like materials and what we do with materials, the properties of materials. The technology can be anywhere between the software, it can be tracing paper that architects like to use, and even the materials that the tools that they use to trace out designs and shapes. So then we have the engineering piece, and we talked about the engineering design process. And then we have the art piece, which we can actually use the technology for. So there's lots of technology that helps us design and plan out what it should look like. And that's part of art. It's part of building a model. And then the math piece is super important for architects. They use shapes, they use numbers, measurements, lots and lots of measurements. So there's a lot of STEAM in architecture. Architects use a lot of measurement when they're designing something. And so we have to figure out when's the best time to use centimeters and meters. Now, which one is bigger again? I always forget. Oh, meters, that's right. So meters might be how I measure how tall this entrance is to the Japanese gardens. And centimeters might be how wide those little poles are behind me. So it's important to think about what measurement is going to be best when we're designing something to make it a little bit easier to measure. If you look behind me, you can see a couple statues and a bridge, and we can measure those in maybe meters, but we could also probably use centimeters because it's kind of about a meter tall. But if it's less than a meter tall, it might make more sense to use centimeters. So we have to problem solve. When looking at special features by the Japanese garden, like this tunnel, made out of metal and wire and then wrapped around with plants, it's important to use measurement when designing those things. We have to measure how long we want something before we cut it so it all makes sense and comes together, kind of like a puzzle. So we have to measure how long in either centimeters or meters and then cut it, and it has to be exact all the way down. Otherwise, architects' designs and their plans aren't going to look like what they want. It's your turn this week. I want you to take a chance to practice measuring with meters. Your meter is about one big footstep. So don't think about a normal walking step, think about a big step. That's about 1 meter. So using that, try to figure out how many meters long your home is. You can do it inside in the hallway, or outside on the outside of your house or apartment building, or you could even do some meters between one of your favorite spots, like the Japanese garden out here and the Fabian house, which you can see behind me. You could even go on a trail that's close by and measure how far it is from like one tree to the next. Lots of ways to do that. The second option is you can design, just like an architect, a house, but for a dog. So I want you to include in that design something that's special. What makes it special to you? And why is it special for a dog? Then also include measurements. How many centimeters, how many meters do you think it should be wide, tall, and long? And then also, what materials are you going to use to build it? What materials make sense? In our Japanese garden over here, they used cement, wood, rocks, some natural stuff. It's up to you. plan it out and share it with someone.